and welcome to the Veronica Harris Show. I am your host, Veronica Lynn Harris, here with my co-host,
Gregory L. Harris, co-piloting today.
You co-piloting today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's your job today?
Yeah.
All right. And here with our guest, Mr. Brandy Sims.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Okay, and just want to give you a little bit of information, background story about our guest. Mr. Brandy Sims is the Montgomery County Sentinel sports editor. Brandy Sims is an award-winning sports journalist who has covered professional, college, and high school sports in the DMV for more than 20 years, including the Washington Redskins and Washington Mystics. He has an extensive background in both print and broadcast media and has freelanced for Slam, Dime Magazine, and the Washington Post. He captured first place honors in the Maryland, Delaware, D.C. Press Association 2006 editorial contest for a sports column entitled Remembering Len Bias. The Oakland native began his career at WMAL AM radio in Washington, D.C., where he produced the market's top-rate sports talk show, Sports Call, with host Ken Beatrice. A former sports director for Cable News 21, Brandy also produced sports at WJLA TV and served as host of the award-winning Metro Sports Connection program on Montgomery Community Television. In addition, Brandy is a frequent contributor to various radio and television sports talk shows in the Washington, D.C. market. Again, welcome, Brandy.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. Okay, so we have Brandy here today, and we're going to be talking sports as well as some other things. But before I get into that, Gregory, do you have anything to say to our guests today?
Excited to have you, Brandy. You've been covering sports for a long time, so I'm going to have some questions for you to try to, put some things in perspective, the greatest of all time, stuff like that.
Sounds good. Fire away.
And actually, Brandy and I met over a Twitter feed when it was talking about Len Bias.
Yes.
Actually, it was over the anniversary of his birthday, actually.
Yes. His birthday. His death is really celebrated too. It was a sad day in history back in 1986 when he passed away. I mean, I still remember that day succinctly. I mean, it was just, it was all over the news. I heard it on the radio. I remember listening to the Don and Mike show on the radio, and that's where I got the news from. And WAVA radio. And it was just a shock to everybody because he had been drafted 2 days prior, and everybody was excited for him to have an outstanding NBA career with the Boston Celtics, but it never happened.
Yeah, I didn't know him, have a personal relationship with him, but I actually had a friend whose brother went to Maryland at the time. Actually, my friend was Cedric Lewis. His brother Derek Lewis played with him. So I had a chance to see Len Bias at the games and everything, and kind of knew him from afar. And being younger, definitely looked up to him and followed him on TV when they played in the tournament and everything. So to hear, actually, it was one of those things where, do you know where you were when it happened? And I did.
Right.
So kind of thing. So, and like I said, we bonded actually how we met, and then we've kind of had that, correspondence ever since then. So that's how we met, and I'm glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
So let's get into the nitty gritty, as they say. Yes, because everybody. We follow each other on Facebook too, and every time I turn around, everybody. So you're currently the sports editor?
Yes, sports editor at the Montgomery County Sentinel. I've been doing that 10 years now. Working for the Montgomery County Sentinel before. I was with Channel 21 in Montgomery County, so a lot of people knew me from that. But I grew up in Montgomery County. I went to the Newport School in Kensington, Maryland. Played basketball there.
My ex-boyfriend went there.
Played basketball for a man named who's no longer with us, but Harold Gaither, nickname Red. He actually was a scout for the Washington Bullets, so he knew Bernie Bickerstaff, Wes Unseld, people like that.
And Bernie Bickerstaff's son is now the head coach at the Houston Rockets.
Yes.
Sorry, they should have never fired Kevin McHale. That's all I'm going to say, but I'm going to leave that at that. Okay. So anyway, being that we say you seem to know everybody. So just off the top of your head, or you know what, Greg, let you jump in because you said you had some questions.
Not yet. When we going to talk about what the show's about?
Oh, okay.
Let's get into that.
Okay. Well, actually, today's show is about we like to talk about, well, Gregory and I are both educators. So we always like to talk about athletes and their education. And as you know, the NCAA is really cracking down on graduation rates amongst the revenue sports, and particularly amongst males, African Americans. So we like to talk about actually the myth of the dumb jock. And while that seems to be what some people would think is the rule, we said that it is not actually the rule, but it is the exception.
Yeah.
Because you can't be dumb and be a jock. Like, you really have to be smart. And according to Gardner, Dr. Gardner, there are multiple intelligences. You know, you can have spatial intelligence, kinesthetic intelligence, visual, audio-visual, linguistic, things of that nature. But I didn't play football, obviously. I did play basketball, and I've coached basketball. And just to be aware of your job, where the other person must be, where they must be positioned, say, like, for instance, you have you have your 4, your 5, you have your wingman. And let's just say you want to put your guard up in, have everybody awareness on the court and know where you have to move. That spatial awareness, that requires a certain type of intelligence.
Right.
So you can't be dumb.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, no athlete is ever dumb. It's just that as an educator, as a coach, you have to find the way to reach them.
Right. And football players have to know have to learn playbooks. So I mean, they definitely can't be a dumb jock to do that.
No, I've seen those. I mean, I haven't seen them, but I've heard about them. And now that they are on, technology, they're on the iPads, and now they have even, software where it's virtual now. So that's their way of trying to get around the practice, the practice limits in terms of hours. Okay, we're not going to be on the practice field and pads. We're just going to have it virtual. So, they're trying to be slick, but they're still practicing.
So, Brandy, covering sports for a long time.
Yes.
The jock was dumb. As we progressed, there's no longer dumb jocks.
But we were
there were never dumb jocks.
Okay.
Or, like all walks of life, you have smart jocks, dumb jocks, middle-weight jocks. How do you see it?
It's just a myth in society. I mean, you see these stories. I like to highlight when I write stories about kids doing positive things, our student athletes doing positive things. I mean, I come across that, a lot of student athletes who are, straight A students. I remember Marvin Lewis, who played for Montrose Christian, played for Stu Vedder at Montrose Christian. He was a 4.0 student, had a 4.0 grade point average, went on to Georgia Tech, and played in the national championship game. I remember they played UConn that year, and they lost in the national championship game. But he had an outstanding college career at Georgia Tech, in the ACC, and now he's an administrator at Georgia. I believe he's back at Georgia Tech now. So, I mean, he's a great example of a player, who was an outstanding student in high school, college, and now doing great in his professional career.
So I have a theory. Maybe somebody put that myth out there just hating. They saw OJ. OJ couldn't read now.
Well, Dexter Manley
Couldn't read.
couldn't read.
So they just wanted to throw shade on them. They was such a great athlete, they wanted to throw shade. So they say, jocks are dumb. And they wanted that to be the rule. They tried to let everybody believe that jocks were dumb when that wasn't the case.
Well, do you think that actually there were some sort of racial overtones to that? Because you think about it, if you look at historically who plays these revenue-producing sports, basketball and football. Okay, I played a non-revenue sport. I was considered the nerd. Okay, Gregory, you played a revenue sport. Okay, so typically the people that dominate those sports are African American. We were already seen as less than, our white counterparts. We were seen as inferior. So I think that's something that perhaps we can talk about in our next segment. So we should take some time to think about that, get our thoughts together, and we're going to come back and discuss that a little bit further. Did race possibly have anything to do with it? Maybe it didn't. You know what? We'll discuss that later in our next segment. We'll be right back.
My name is Kyra Stewart. I'm a board member of the Woodridge Warriors Youth Organization. But more importantly, I'm a parent. Woodridge was established as a community-based organization in 1963. 49 years later, we continue to thrive as a nonprofit, offering mentoring and sports services to Washington area boys and girls aged 5 to 15. Our kids have year-round sports options, including playing football, basketball, baseball, and cheering. Woodridge has a committed group of experienced coaches and dedicated volunteers, working to make every child better. We welcome players at all levels with a focused approach that moves young athletes from beginner to experienced and finally advanced. We've seen our players go on to play in college and professionally, but more importantly, they go on to become successful men and women. The Woodridge community is dedicated to positive youth development. Come and play with us.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
And we're back here at the Veronica Harris Show, and we're continuing our discussion about the myth of the dumb jock. Is it a myth? Is it not a myth? Is there some racial connotations or some racial overtones as to why there is, we have that myth here still with us today? So let's get back into that conversation. Gregory, you said something you want to jump back into. OJ couldn't read or write.
So,
shocking.
We're saying that it's not the case that they're dumb jocks. And I'm like, well, where did it come from and who perpetuated it? And if you think back to it, athletes, okay? When you're good at in the world of sports, you're popular, and your coaches, God bless them because they're giving up their time, but not all coaches are interested in your academic success.
Well, who were most of the coaches at the time?
Who were they?
No,
You
who
tell me.
were they? When you think about the coaches, who were they? Like Paul Bear Bryant.
Okay.
Caucasian.
Right.
Okay. Jesse Owens coach, Larry Schneider.
I actually know someone who played for Bear Bryant. He actually, Craig Touchdown Turner, he went to Damascus High School. He was actually, his claim to fame, he scored the last touchdown in the Paul Bear Bryant era.
I mean, when you look at the coaches who were overseeing these young athletes who were basically controlling their life, you have a white, older person controlling these young black men.
And even before they get to college, you're in high school, you're scoring touchdowns left and right. You're helping me win games. I'm not really concerned about your schoolwork. And they're passing kids along. And if you took that young man and told him he should compete in the classroom like he does on that field, I'm sure he'd have met the challenge. But instead of telling them that, they're just using you for what you were worth right to them now, winning football games, basketball games, the revenue sports, and they're passing these kids along instead of trying to really educate them.
Right. The bottom line in athletics is the money. And, they want to pass along these kids because, they're bringing in they're the money makers for these schools. They're making millions of dollars for these colleges and universities. And, when they're on the court, that's why you get all these big TV contracts. The football and basketball players, that's what's bringing in the money to these universities. And if they're not there, the schools lose out on millions and millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. There's plenty of research out there. There's plenty of literature out there in the public domain that will tell you or that can give you not just anecdotal information, but also empirical information that will tell you that it was almost like a plantation mentality. Almost like, and I hate to use the word, but it's like slavery. Mm-hmm. Even in terms of, if you want to take it to the professional level, Kurt Flood, he was kind of like the godfather of free agency, because he was basically saying that, you're not going to be able to control me or tell me where I can go and where I can't go to make my money and things of that nature. We talk about, young men having to, even playing at the highest levels of their sport, but yet when they get to the arena where they have to play or get to the hotel where their team is staying, they have to go through the service entrance.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Kurt Floyd because Kurt Floyd, my mother went to the same high school, McClymonds High School in
You
Oakland,
just know
California.
everybody.
But I tell you, Bill Russell and Frank Robinson also went to that same high school. I mean, it's produced tons of outstanding athletes. McClymonds High School, Oakland, California.
Wow, definitely amazing. I mean, and even today, I think that maybe not so much, but I used to always see when I watched the certain football games, and you see the starting lineups of like the offensive line or defensive line. You see everybody's getting a communication degree, or everybody's going to sports management, and there's nothing wrong with it. God bless you, get that sports management or that communications degree. But typically, the communications degree was an easier degree to get to, or it's what, why is everybody going into that degree? Nobody wants to be a bio major. Nobody wants to be a chem major. Nobody wants to go into engineering, things of that nature.
Veronica, it's only 24 hours in the day. And if you were spending 8 of them practicing football, lifting weights, film room, all that stuff to be good at what you do, you got to sleep 8 hours. I mean, how much time you got for the study and the research needed to be an astronaut, be a chemical engineer,
let me tell you something right now.
be a genetic engineer? How much time do you have? It's
tell
all
you
about
something
time.
right now. Track and field, we competed 3 seasons, okay? I had cross country, indoor, and outdoor.
Y'all wasn't a money sport.
Oh, don't matter. We weren't a money sport, but
So you ain't popular. So when
excuse-
you
that-
going
hold
from
on,
the
wait.
cafeteria to the library,
No, wait a
you ain't
minute,
got to
hold
sign
on.
autographs and deal with the fans like I had to do. See what I'm saying?
What, you played, wait a minute. You played one night, okay, so if you had a game on a Saturday, that was that one night. When we had
I had to socialize.
When we had competitions, we competed 2 nights. Plus we left on, like, if say we competed on a Saturday and a Sunday, we left on a Friday. Or we may have left on a Thursday, depending on how far we had to go. Now, mind you, I had a double major, okay? All my classes were required, okay? Now, let's think about something else. I practiced twice a day. Once mandatory and then once again on my own. Plus, I did weight room. And I took 18 credits. Now, to be full-time is 12. Most people will do 15, but I wanted to get out early, make sure I was done early, so I took 18 credits and did winter session and summer session. And still had time to get my naps in.
Exception to the rule.
So what's the problem here?
It's a spectrum.
What the
You
problem?
on top end of
What
the
the problem
spectrum.
is?
You can't expect everybody to do that.
What?
That.
You got one sport, one season. What? How many games y'all got? No, I'm not talking about you, because basketball usually have 35 games. But I'm talking about like football. What? 12 games?
There's a lot to it. You got spring league. You got spring ball too now.
What? And plus, y'all practice time is restricted. Football, what? 20 hours a week?
Maybe more in some instances.
But was there like it's 20 hours a week? Y'all restricted to pads or whatever for football, for college football? Y'all got restricted time. We didn't have restricted time. And taking 18 credits.
And your point? I forgot the point was.
The point is,
What?
how come I can do it? Okay, how come?
Can't expect everybody to do that though.
How come the people at Princeton can do it and graduate? Tell me how come the Princeton girls basketball team don't seem to have a problem with doing it? How come the UConn girls, ranked #1 all year, don't seem to have a problem with their graduation rate, but yet the UConn boys team had to go on probation because they had a horrible, they couldn't make AYP. They couldn't maintain progress toward graduation.
So like we said, there's no such thing as a dumb job. It's proven that it can be done. It's all about where you put your focus and emphasis.
So clearly, teams aren't putting their focus on it.
Yeah. And now it's time for a break.
Morning, Gary. We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you? You know you do. That's why we're here. We're free and here to guide you through every step of the way, starting with attendance. Gary, financial aid forms. Picking a college, man. You and us. Go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos. Go to getschool.com.
We taught him how to hit a baseball, how to hit a receiver, the strike zone, the net. You taught him how to hit the upper corner. You even taught him how to hit the open man. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit?
Hi, and we're back here at the Veronica Harris Show. And that was a pretty lively discussion about, what athletes have to do in order to, manage their time and things of that nature. But now here's the time where we're going to let Gregory have his chance with our guest.
Ready, Brandy?
You never know what he's going to say.
I'm ready. Fire
Talk
away.
about bass turtles and all that kind of stuff.
They say, this area is a hotbed for talent. All right. Do you find that to be true? We got New York, Chicago, LA, the South. Is this a hotbed for talent? Before you even go into there, if it is, why so very few athletes come out of go D1 out of this area?
Well, we talk about football. Football and basketball are both hotbeds. But from covering sports over the past 20 years or so, I've noticed. Other sports, soccer is a huge hotbed, especially Montgomery County, Howard County. Volleyball. And other sports, less publicized sports, but particularly football and basketball is a huge hotbed. You talk about Kevin Durant over the years, even back in the day, Adrian Dantley, who's a Hall of Famer. This area is a huge hotbed, and football. A lot of people don't know this area. It's a huge football hotbed. I covered Navarro Bowman in high school, Joe Hayden. And I've seen Vernon Davis. I saw him play at Dunbar High School when he played at Dunbar High School. So, I've seen guys over the years, high school, followed them from high school to the pros, and I've noticed things that this area is not only a basketball hotbed, which it's been known that for years, but it's also a football hotbed as well.
Okay, the bed is hot. All right. Next question. They said, I lost my train of thought really quickly. Hold on, get it back. All right. So, the area. They said Inner High was the best. Dave Bing, Sherman Douglas, the Inner High was great basketball. And then they said, and then all you hear old timers especially saying, basketball ain't the same. What's your response?
Well, I actually saw Sherman Douglas play in high school. Cole Fieldhouse, I remember back in the 80s. It was Spingarn versus DeMatha. Remember DeMatha had Danny Ferry, and Spingarn had, you mentioned Sherman Douglas and a guy named Anthony Duck, I remember. And Sherman went on to Syracuse in the NBA. And Ferry, we know his story. He left DeMatha and went to play at Duke and then played in the NBA. The Inner High, which is, I guess, is now the name has changed, but the DC public schools. Yeah, the DC public schools. You're finding nowadays a lot of kids are going to the private schools, the WCAC, and it's producing a lot of talent coming out of that league.
Yeah, they complain about the private schools stealing all the city kids now, and that's why the Inner High ain't as good as it used to be. Okay, next question. So the Inner High was the premier league in the area, and they called it the DMV.
Right.
And then, people thought the Montgomery County League wasn't as tough. The Catholic School League was good, wasn't as tough as the city schools. You played, so tell me the difference between these county schools, the coaching at these different levels, these different areas, the talent at these different areas.
You played
that type of thing.
There's some good coaching in Montgomery County. I want to give a shout out to Montgomery County because I've seen Montgomery County teams over the past 10 years. Sherwood won it one year with a kid named Deontay Twyman. Springbrook had they went on three straight years. They won the Maryland 4A state championship. And I know Wise High School has won it out of Prince George's County, won the state championship. So there's been some schools from Prince George's and Montgomery County over the years that have won state championships. So there is talent in those counties as well.
So they play the inner high champion versus the Catholic school champion. Do you think if they had like an inner high Catholic school, Montgomery County, PG County, the two county clubs could get in there and beat, maybe?
Well, I've seen all-star games between Prince George's and Montgomery County, and those are usually competitive. I remember one year Prince George's County knocked off Montgomery County, but it was a really competitive battle. And like I say, I mean, there's a lot of good talent coming out of Prince George's and Montgomery County as well. And a lot of the top players, like I said, they're leaving public schools and going to the private schools.
Every time I listen to your answer, I forget my next question. All right, hold on. I should write this stuff down for me.
Yes, you should.
Okay, give me your best 3 high school players you've seen past 20 years.
Got to be Kevin Durant. Football, basketball, or
basketball.
Kevin Durant. Deontay Twyman was a talented player. He was he was an all-Met player in football and basketball.
Okay.
I want to give a shout out to Isaiah Swan was a talented player out of Magruder High School. He led them to their first state championship. I believe it was the early 2000s. I want to say maybe 2001 or 2002. But yeah, Isaiah was a talented player. And let's give a shout out to the girls. I saw Monique Curry play at the Bullis School. She played for a guy named Wayne Farrell.
No relation to Stephen Curry.
And Monique left Bullis, went on to Duke, and then she plays in the WNBA. I think she's still active in the WNBA.
Well, I would say in the past 20 years, I would have to say my vote. You would have been one of the best high school players I've ever seen.
This will be the 20th year of my graduation. Yeah. Thank you very much.
A lot of people still talk about you.
They don't.
They do. They know you. He knew you.
Yeah. So I think that's that segment. We going on to the next segment now?
Yes. Now is the time for What is Veronica Thinking? This is the portion where we ask, what am I thinking? And today, I am thinking about the dumb jock. Is there a myth? Is it? We have said that no, there is not a myth. That perhaps it was just something that was a thought that was perpetrated throughout time.
Racially inspired.
Racially inspired, yes. We take the position that it's racially inspired. And it can be backed up by studies that is in the literature, that if you want to take the time to go and find out, definitely we feel free. Definitely look up in your educational journals, and you can find that information. But instead of thinking that, the dumb jock is the rule, that really it is the exception. And it's much like, what did you call it, a fast turtle?
Huh?
You called it a fast turtle.
I don't remember ever saying that.
Well, anyway, and our position that there is no such thing as a dumb jock. Really, there's just athletes that learn things differently. And that we as coaches and educators, we need to find the way to pass on that content to them that'll meet their needs. In other words, we need to meet them where they are at, as they say in the education profession. So in other words, take the time to know your athletes, know your students, find out how they learn best. Then it is up to you, the teacher and the coach, to go and find how to best present that content to them. Because anybody can learn. You just have to find a way to give that information to them. Never count an athlete or a student out. Never think that they can't do anything. We can all do anything that we put our minds to.
Spoken like a true educator.
And that's what I am. Thank you for joining us here today on the Veronica Harris Show, and we will see you next time.